He owns and operates the Pack a Day podcast that airs 365 days a year with over 12 million views on YouTube. A new adventure begins. It's time for the Pack a Day radio show with Andy Herman on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and on the free Odyssey app.
Surgery went well, and he's in great spirits, and he's here with us. So, yeah, now it's just about putting in the work to get the thumb rehab. I wouldn't say right away, but we anticipate there'll be some sort of participation next week.
Good morning, Packers Nation. Welcome into the Pack a Day radio show. Happy Friday. We are live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan studios and powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. That was Matt LaFleur on Jordan Love, courtesy of WTMJ. Dara Carriger is coming up today, PackerReport.com, 8:20 a.m. We are excited to have him on. We're going to chat all things Packers, including that Packers-Colts practice from yesterday and looking ahead to the preseason game tomorrow. I would also love for you to join the show, Nicolay Law Fan Talking text line 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250. Call us, text us, or hit us up on YouTube, which, if you did not know, you can find us on YouTube every single day. All of our shows here on The Fan, live streamed on YouTube, plus you have the highlights afterwards as well, so you can check that out as well. Of course, yesterday was Packers-Colts practice. We knew Jordan Love was not going to play. He was out at practice. He did talk to the media. And, one of the things that we found out was that he's in a cast. But we also found out that he apparently is going to be good to go for next week. At least that was per Jordan. Said it should be a couple days here. And he does anticipate participating next week, as did Matt LaFleur anticipate him participating in some form next week as well. So hopefully that is all very, very good news on Jordan. He did also state that had it not been preseason, had it been regular season, he said he probably would not have got the surgery at this point in time, but just being the time that it was, he really wanted to go into the season with no lingering issues. The reason being is he had all of the injury issues last year, and he had to navigate all of that. If he had the opportunity to kind of get this done now so that it's not an issue coming into the season, he wanted to do it, which makes a ton of sense. And I think, again, if he's back out there next week, that's as good a scenario as you could possibly imagine, all things considered. So cast on the thumb right now. Looks scary. Hearing ligament surgery sounds scary, but by all accounts, nothing too scary about it. Should be back next week and good to go for practices. Although we will see if he does joint practices with Seattle. He's certainly not going to do the preseason game by all accounts. And that still is a little bit of a bummer, but again, better to happen now than through the course of the regular season. We did have lots of news and notes. I got to shout out, Wes Hodkiewicz, Mike Spofford, Ryan Wood, Matt Schneidman, those guys. This is what you guys have to go through every single day, just relying on tweets from every other person. I forgot how this feels of me just updating my phone and scrolling through every single day to try to figure out exactly every single little morsel and detail that I can find out from Packers practice. So, Tommy, I don't envy that side of things. I have become very spoiled in being able to cover this every single day, and I could not stand just having to wait for tweets to come out to learn everything. But those guys, Wes, Mike, Ryan, Schneidman, they all did incredible job to kind of keep us up to date yesterday.
Yeah, and it sounded like there was a lot of good that came from yesterday too, maybe more so yesterday than previous days, especially after the rocky week one of preseason. Defense definitely given some hope for Green Bay heading into this week.
Yeah, this sounds like it was an absolute offensive train wreck by both sides yesterday. Now, the good news is Green Bay has some pretty automatic excuses baked into that. You see practice, of course, Jordan's not going to practice. And then the wide receiver room comes walking out in an infirmary, just might as well have been in wheelchairs and cots, coming out. It was just ridiculous. You got Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks, Savion Williams, just all these top wide receivers for Green Bay not practicing, and then Jordan Love as well. That's going to make things a bit complicated for your offense. So I don't want to say you were playing with house money to some extent, but the expectations were understandably low for the offense going into that joint practice. You're, again, missing 4 of your top 5 wide receivers and your starting quarterback. It was always probably going to be pretty ugly. It sounds like the running game was okay, which is what you were hoping for, because you knew that wasn't going to be much from a passing attack and you were going to have to run the football in practice. But it sounds like it was okay. Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd, Israel Abanikanda, who was back from injury. Sounds like they had solid days, but as you would expect, not much going right for the offense in the passing game standpoint. The Colts defense well ahead of Malik Willis and the backup wide receivers. And Matthew Golden was out there too. But that's, again, to basically be expected in that sort of situation and scenario. You did have some Isaiah Nair catches again showing up, which is pretty impressive for a guy that just got to camp. Tucker Kraft was not too happy overall with the performance of the offense. He said a couple different things. He said, quote, "Some of our youth showed up a lot. When we're out there, the importance is knowing what to do and doing it at a really fast speed at a very consistent level. So our youth showed a bit in some instances with the injuries that we had to our depth chart. We left some meat on the bone. We were doing a good job competing, but we know the level that we expect to play at, and we didn't empty the tank." So Tucker Kraft, very, non-satisfied with the offense overall, which I love the fact that he is just calling it out and saying, hey, we didn't play up to our standard. Doesn't matter that we didn't have Jordan or our, four of our top wide receivers. We expect to play a certain way. We didn't play to that level. And that's awesome. I love that. Again, I didn't have a ton of expectations for the offense going into that. But as you mentioned, Tommy, the defense absolutely balled the heck out. I gave my game ball yesterday to DeMarcus Covington, the defensive line coach, and Jeff Hafley. These were just updates that I read throughout the course of the day. LVN sack, Rashawn Gary sack, Colby Wooden sack, Quay Walker sack, Tyron Hopper sack, LVN sack, Brent Cox sack, Barron Sorrell sack, Carl Brooks potential sack. Like, that was a heck of a day from the defensive front. Ryan Wood summed it up, said, quote, "Final damage for the Packers defense against the Colts. 10 sacks, 4 takeaways, and at least 3 tackles for loss." He also added that the Colts had a touchdown in the 2-minute period, which is, I guess, some little good news for the Colts offense. But they did a red zone period of 22 plays in the Packers defense red zone. And, it's just the, plays over and over. They could have theoretically scored 22 touchdowns on those plays. They scored 1 on a 3-yard touchdown run in those 22 red zone plays. So really impressive day overall from the Packers defense. Keyshawn Nixon had an interception. Jonathan Baldwin had an interception. Javon Bullard stripped Adonai Mitchell of the ball, and Evan Williams recovered that one. They were, by all accounts, flying around. And what you really love to see is that the defense was able to get after that Colts offensive line. Now, the Colts offensive line is, it's gross. All right. It's not great. And they kind of beat up on the center and right guard, which are the two, Bartoloni, the former Wisconsin Badger, at center, Goncalves at right guard. Those are the two that I think they kind of took advantage of the most. But Raymond just got a big new contract. Braden Smith's a solid tackle, and Rashawn Gary and LVN were beating up on them. And Tommy, we have talked about it. Like, nobody, and I mean nobody, I don't think LVN's family is crowning LVN at this point in time. Everyone needs to see it come regular season, right? But the fact that he is going out there day in and day out, and now against, the Colts starting offensive tackles, and still coming up with sacks and big plays every single day, there has to be some level of encouragement that this is going to be a better and improved LVN going into this season. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that 20 pressures turns into like 28 pressures and it's still like, all right, that's better, but it's not good enough. I don't know if this, comes with a, he's just hustling every play, and he works his way into a handful of hustle sacks, which is great, but you still want to see him win. I will say they did on the Packers Twitter account, they did a little LVN feature that he was mic'd up, and they showed some of his wins at the line of scrimmage. And he had a little stutter step move. He had a little speed move off the edge, like just showing some different things that we haven't seen before. I am desperately trying to temper expectations as best as I can, and I really need to see it out on the regular season field. But it is encouraging nonetheless that LVN is having this level of camp, including against the Indianapolis Colts so far.
I don't even know if you have to necessarily point to LVN, Andy, just the defensive line in general, right? Just if they're going to get the pressure from the front four and they're not going to rely on blitz packages in Jeff Hafley's defense, to hear noise about anyone on the defensive line is encouraging. If someone else can pick up some slack, obviously LVN has maybe the most pressure just because of his draft position. But if you can hear any one of those names from the defensive line able to, take advantage of a bad offensive line and provide pressure for the defense and on the quarterback, that's always going to be positive news for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, so if I can be I've obviously been hyping up this defensive front, LVN, etc. If I can be a wet blanket for a moment, I remember very distinctly last year, joint practices in Green Bay, and the Packers defensive front destroyed Baltimore. And I mean destroyed Baltimore to the point where John Harbaugh after practice said, yeah, we couldn't even practice because the Packers defensive line was basically in our backfield on every single play. Like he's like, it was a non-starter. We couldn't do anything because they just wrecked us up front. The Ravens went on to have one of the best offensive seasons. The Packers defensive front was fine. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad, but it was fine. And, you know, so it's not necessarily a key indicator of what's to come for Green Bay. I will still take it rather than the alternative. If like, you're like, yep, defensive front against this bad Colts offensive line could not get home all day long, I'd be a little bit panicked. I'd be like, oh my goodness, this is like, do something, you know, make the trade for Trey Hendrickson or Micah Parsons, figure something out. But thankfully, this was a very positive performance from the Packers defense, and very thankfully, because with the offense not being able to do anything, if there were not positive takeaways on the defensive side of the ball, it would have been a very, very, very long day at Packers Colts practice yesterday.
How much do you weigh in yesterday at all when you read off all the names like you did at the beginning? Like there's a lot of guys not practicing or participating in this, and obviously you hear Jordan Love's name and immediately you're already like, okay, well, he's going to be the guy this season for Green Bay. But they didn't have, I think they had 3 of their top 4 wide receivers out. They had Xavier McKinney out during that stretch too, who's obviously a captain and leader on the defense. Like, how much can you really weigh in other than maybe satisfaction with the depth of Green Bay during these joint practices, Andy?
Yeah, I think it's the same as preseason. Like the ultimate results and things like that don't matter a whole heck of a lot. You're not trying to take away anything from like a team standpoint, really. These everything, and even in like regular practices, are individual evaluations more than anything else. So it's for the coaches to be able to go and say which players are playing well, which ones are not, which ones are up to their side. But like Tucker Kraft pointed out, what he's basically saying is that with the top wide receivers out and some of these other guys, and I don't know which ones, so I don't want to name the names of who it might be because I don't know which ones were screwing up, but the wide receivers and the players that were coming in to fill in for those players didn't have the full grasp of the playbook or weren't running it at the pace and the speed that it needed to because they were probably thinking through some things. So those are the type of individual evaluations that you were looking for, of like who can hang with the ones, like who can go out there and legitimately make an impact, who's not making their assignments and running the plays the way that they're supposed to be running them. Like these are huge, huge moments for the coaching staff and the general manager to evaluate where these players are at overall, how they make up the 53, how they go into Detroit with certain lineups. That's what you're going to take away from it. I don't necessarily be like, well, the offense wasn't able to get in the end zone, other than a couple times, so the offense is struggling. No, it would be more of like, all right, did Isaiah Nair actually make a couple plays to get him bumped up the depth chart a couple spots? Does Malik Willis, do what he needs to do to show that he still has a great grasp of the offense if needed throughout the course of the season? I think it's all those individual things, and that's why like last week when we saw 30-10, right? 30-10 is an ugly score. It means absolutely nothing. It doesn't mean a thing. And in fact, when you went and watched the individual evaluations of some of the younger players, as we talked about this past week, guys like Jordan Morgan, Anthony Belton, Barron Sorrell, Colby Wooden, Carl Brooks, Kingsley Enagbare. There were a lot of young players that played a lot of snaps in that game that are going to play for Green Bay this year that actually had really good evals from that game. Again, not knowing the assignments and things like that, there could have been some mistakes there, but just going one-on-one against the players opposing them, there were actually a decent amount of positive takeaways. So it's just always a good reminder that this time of year is so much more for individual evaluation and far less about any sort of team evaluation or prognosticating what the team is going to be based on a practice, a training camp practice, a joint practice, or even a preseason game.
Yeah, and you see that like the one-on-ones also seem to be a big highlight too. I think I saw McCole Hardman on one, and I forget where else I was going, but the one-on-one.
Matthew Golden, too. Matthew Golden,
yeah,
smoked a couple of Colts defenders, including Trevarius Ward, their veteran. And this is another great example, right? Like, these are so tilted towards the offense. I mean, you are one-on-one on the outside, and the
unlimited
receiver has
time.
Yes, the whole world at their disposal, right? Like, they can go anywhere. There's no help. There's no nothing. So, I mean, if the defender gets a win, it's a really impressive feat. If the receiver gets a win, it's like, well, you were supposed to. But Matthew Golden still, like, the level of separation that he got, including against a player, a veteran like Trevarius Ward, who got a big contract this offseason from Indy, that was encouraging. And I know, like, Sam Munson and, Steve, his co-host on the show, were out there at practice, and they were very impressed with Matthew Golden, the separation that he was able to get throughout practice yesterday. So definitely, again, positive individual takeaways, but as far as what we can glean from it long term, I don't think there's a whole heck of a lot, for better or worse.
Yeah, I agree. I just, I want to be able to look forward to something and look at something during these each and every week, and it's hard to look at it from not a stats point of view or a team point of view, right? Whenever you look at a football game. And so that's what is the exact opposite of what we're doing here in this week, specifically against Indy, it feels like.
Yeah, and then, again, I think we're just programmed that way, right? We watch the game on Sunday, and it's a team performance, and we're focused on, what are the takeaways, who played well, who didn't, but also we're looking at the box score, we're looking at, the grades from the game or whatever, and we're trying to, put together the pieces of the puzzle. And it's just such a different ball game in preseason because, again, you're trying to get sometimes different situations and circumstances, calling plays that you would never call. I mean, the offensive and defensive play calls in the preseason game were, laughably funny, some of the stuff that they were calling, especially early on in that game. Nothing that they would ever do. Like, as Justice Mosqueda came on and pointed out, there's a play in red zone where against Justin Fields, the fastest quarterback, you're playing man-to-man, turning your back to him as a runner, and you're playing a single high post safety in the end zone. Nobody's running a post in the end zone, in the red zone. Like, it's the last defense. Like, it might literally be the last defense that you would ever call in that situation against Justin Fields in the red zone. And that's the play call. And it's not to try to stop Justin Fields in that situation specifically. It's we don't want to put anything out there on tape that teams can, get anything that we would actually do in a real game. But also it's just like, we're not set up here to, like, all we need to do is stop Justin Fields. It's like, all right, let's see what these guys can do in man-to-man coverage. Let's see what the defensive line can do when they've got to contain Justin Fields in the pocket. And to be fair, they didn't do a great job containing Justin Fields. He ran for a touchdown, and it's that. And you evaluate those things and you fix them. But it just, you have to almost change the mindset entirely of all right, giving up a touchdown, like McCole Hardman, catching that punt inside the 5-yard line. We talked about that. I care that he, wasn't able to do anything with it. I care that he fumbled the ball. I have no care in a preseason game. Like, if I were the coach, I don't know what they told him. I don't know what Rich Bisaccia told them. My guess is they were probably play it like a real game, where this is like a dress rehearsal, play it like a real game. If I were the coach, I'd be like, if that punt's anywhere, you're taking that punt. I want to see what you can do. I want to see what our blocking looks like. And if we get it at the 1-yard line, I want to see what our team does backed up against the 1-yard line to see how they respond to that situation. So it's a different ball game entirely in what you're trying to evaluate with this stuff. But I will say, still a lot of positive takeaways from the defense. And you listen to the Colts or read the Colts beat writers from yesterday, and it was like the Colts offense was embarrassed to a level that nothing's ever happened on a football field before.
Sure.
And that is still a very positive takeaway for this defense.
One more last thing. If things go sideways early in a regular season, are you allowed to point back to anything in the preseason to say that, hey, we saw this coming, or this didn't get fixed, at least at minimum?
I would say if you see this team, let's just say that they're, kind of like this second preseason game is going to be tough, right? Like, you're not playing any starters. Indianapolis is probably going to play Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. They're going to have two, we can, if we want to call them starters or not, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, but two players who have started in this league. And, again, Matt's already said that the primary player is probably not going to play much, if at all, in this game. This could be another ugly one where you start looking at it and be like, ugh, this is another gross performance. And then, that third one, now Jordan's not going to play in that one. If you said that one against Seattle, a team that's also kind of trying to figure some things out, it wouldn't stun me either if that was kind of a little bit of a stinker as well in the final preseason. If all of a sudden there's 3 preseason games that don't feel great, and then against Detroit specifically, if they just come out flat, whether it's appropriate or not, or whether it's real or not, there will absolutely be a connotation of you came out flat for 3 preseason games and then you came out flat against Detroit. There will be the connecting of the dots, whether it's actually legitimate or not. So regardless of what happens, Green Bay is not going to be judged on what happened in these 3 preseason games. They'll be immediately judged by if they suck entirely in these 3 preseason games. Let's say they lose the next 2, 40-0. If they go and beat Detroit week 1, by a point, doesn't even matter. It'll be all is forgiven, right? Nobody's going to care about remember when they lost 3 games in the preseason. I think if you do stink up the joint in the 3 games in preseason, and then there's signs of that against Detroit, and you lose that game, and it's maybe not pretty, and it doesn't feel like you showed up, there will be major questions. And it's, again, right or wrong, it will absolutely be the case.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's just like what helps the argument more, right? It would just be if we're going to be upset about a week 1 performance, well, we have evidence of being upset about performances similar to the 3 weeks earlier. In the games that don't matter, if you do go out and win your first game that does matter, then forget all about it.
Those first, I mean, Washington and Detroit, well, vice versa, Detroit and Washington, and like Sunday and then Thursday immediately. I mean, we're not only just a litmus test, but we're going to get to know a lot about these Green Bay Packers. Probably some adversity early on, and how they go out and play 2 really tough opponents at home. And it's one of those interesting scenarios. You go 2-0 and you are on top of the world. You go 0-2, the sky is going to feel like it's falling very, very quick. You go 1-1 and it's probably fine. Like you get the win hopefully against Cleveland in week 3, or is it Dallas 3, Cleveland 4, whatever it is. I think it's Cleveland 3.
I think it's 3, yeah.
Yeah, 3, Dallas 4. And then you hopefully get those 2 wins. You get to 3-1, you get to the bye week, and you kind of reset after that. You feel probably pretty good about things. But yeah, you really just can't start 0-2. All right, listen to the Pack a Day radio show live from the 1250 AM at 105.7 FM, the Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. One thing before we get out of here and get to Dar Carragher, the players who did not practice in totality were, of course, Jordan Love, Romeo Dobbs, Zane Anderson, Xavier McKinney, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Nate Hobbs, Christian Watson, Colin Oliver, and John Williams. The good news is, as far as I could tell, there were no players who went down with injury yesterday for Green Bay. Israel Abanikanda returned, and as we mentioned the other day, it was Luke Musgrave and LVN who had kind of a collision at the end of practice. Or I don't know if they were both on the ground at the end of practice and kind of walked off gingerly. Both of them were practicing as well, which was also a good sign. The one thing that I will point to, and I talked about it the other day, where he had the massage gun on his leg, Savion Williams not practicing. That was another one where that's now one where he's had a couple different injuries. He's had the shoulder, the concussion, and now a leg injury. And you really wanted to see him out there for this preseason game. My guess is now he's going to be a no-go. Hopefully he can get back there for that 3rd preseason game, but you're trying to get a little bit better of an evaluation for what Savion Williams can do with this team. And unfortunately, injuries have just snake bit him a little bit. And hopefully moving forward, they can get a little bit better injury news on him and kind of the rest of the team as well. All right, Football Talk in the Fan is presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. We are 70 and fair in Milwaukee right now. High of 84. The low is right now at 70 degrees. We're going to be right back with Dar Carragher. This is the Pack a Day radio show powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Welcome back to the Pack a Day Radio Show. We are live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Reminder that the Mason Crosby Show is coming up next from 9 to 11 with Mitch Thunder Nellis. Right now, joining us on the Fan Guest Hotline, though, powered by Gruber Law, is the one and only Dara Carragher. You can find him on social media at Dara Carragher, also PackerReport.com. Dara, it is great to be chatting with you. How are you doing, my friend?
I am fantastic, Andy. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, we're all getting set for week 0 here in Ireland for the college football, so plenty to look forward to, but obviously the main focus is still those Green Bay Packers.
What I forgot. What's the matchup for week 0?
We've got Farmageddon this year, K-State, Iowa State. It's one of the better games we've got.
Okay.
So, yeah, 2 ranked teams for the first time ever.
That's not bad. That's not bad at all. Those are 2 very good football teams. That should be a very entertaining and fun game. So yeah, that's very exciting. Yeah, I can't believe we are like a couple weeks away, not even from college football starting. Like that's happening very fast here. I was looking at the Badgers schedule the other day, and yeah, this is all going to get very warp speed, very very fast as football season kicks off here. Of course, as we look at what's happening in the here and now, yesterday we had Packers-Colts joint practices. I'm sure you were following everything on social media, just like I was, trying to get every little morsel that we could possibly get from both the Packer side and the Colts side. What were your kind of key takeaways from that joint practice yesterday?
Yeah, well, I mean, the main thing, it was kind of nice to see. It seemed like Van Ness and the defensive line had a pretty nice day. Obviously, he might be playing inspired after those phantom rumors about Micah Parsons joining the Packers. I don't know if we want to get into that one. But
we should.
I mean, I would love it personally. But yeah, on the whole, the defensive line yesterday kind of stuck out to me. Obviously, on the training camp as a whole, the specialists are looking dialed. We'll get into the kicker conversation in a little bit, but obviously Dan Whelan, he's looked great all camp. It's one of those few things you're pretty sure is going to translate to the live action games. So I'm not necessarily excited to watch Dan Whelan punting, but he's going to be really good at his job when he's called upon.
Yeah, we'll definitely want to talk about him as well, because you've got an interesting Irish connection with both the punter and the kicker in Green Bay now as well. So I want to touch base on that. But I did not have the opportunity to talk about our good friend Ricky in our opening segment. So for those who don't know, Ricky is a social media account that posts a lot of NFL rumors and has actually a decent hit rate. Like if this was just one of those obviously ridiculous NFL rumor accounts that just post the most wacky, crazy stuff, I would just be completely ignoring it. But he's actually got a decent amount of stuff right. So it's not one that you just entirely ignore. Now, his last Green Bay update was that the Packers and Rasheed Walker were in contract talks on an extension. And that has not come to fruition at all. Zach Tom came to fruition, but that was not what was reported. Also, I think if there was a Walker that was potentially being talked about, I think I'm almost wonder if they got Quay Walker and Rasheed Walker mixed up, because Quay Walker seems the one that would be more negotiating. But either way, it's not like they're shooting it 100% by any means. But the tweet yesterday from Ricky was basically something to the extent of, still don't expect Micah Parsons to be traded, but the Packers have made a significant offer for Micah Parsons. Now, very clearly not reporting this as canon or truth or anything else, but just interesting nonetheless. We'll put it in the ether and just marinate on it if nothing else, but just not giving it any necessarily credence. Dara, you mentioned you'd be for it. How for it would you be, and how far would you be willing to take it if you were Brian Gutekunst?
I mean, it's hard to know, because obviously the Green Bay, they just love their picks so much, and obviously that's just not how they do business, is this kind of trading acquisition of Micah Parsons. But from a fan perspective, I'm all for fun. I'm all for you know what, I would rather lose in the playoffs with Micah Parsons than lose without him. So I don't really care. I'll go cheer for Micah Parsons in the Packers. But yeah, no, I'm one, I'm not buying it, and 2, I would take it, but I mean, there'd be a lot of considerations, a lot of factors in play, obviously.
The contract is huge, giving up a bunch of draft capital, probably a player or two. It's going to take moving a mountain to probably get a player like that. And even if you made that type of offer, Dallas might still say, now we're just going to resign him in the end. I just, Dara, if you told me that Micah Parsons legitimately became available and the Green Bay Packers were the team of the 31 other teams that probably were interested in Micah Parsons that made the highest bid, I don't even know. I might need a day off from the radio show just to recover from what the heck is happening, because the world would seem like it was upside down. I cannot ever imagine Brian Gutekunst being that aggressive. We did hear that they were, pretty aggressive on the Khalil Mack trade back in the day and trying to get that. So it's not entirely impossible, but I would be pretty stunned if they, of all teams, made the highest offer for Micah Parsons.
Yeah, I'm a 2 out of 10 in all honesty on this one. Yeah, if even that's a generous 2. Yeah, I think the trade conversation could heat up for Parsons, but I don't think Green Bay is going to be the number one be all end all team that everyone's talking about.
Would be remarkable if it was, though. And that's like you said, like being a fan like of just this, like the kind of chaos and stuff. This stuff is always fun to talk about and just try to figure out what would a trade look like. I mean, imagine him and Jeff Hafley's defense. Like, he is a picture perfect, really fun player that Jeff would just be able to utilize everywhere. Like, you line him up over center with everyone else doing their job, put him at linebacker, drop him into zone, rush him off the edge. Like, Jeff would have him probably playing corner at sometimes. Like, that would be like, he would be all over the place, and it would certainly be a ton of fun if that ever did happen. But again, not very likely. All right, we're being joined by Dara Carragher. You can find him again on social media at Dara Carragher, PackerReport.com. What I wanted to dive into as well, because I also did not do a good job of diving into this in the first segment, is Packers Colts actual preseason game and what we're kind of looking forward to, who we want to watch, those sort of things. So as we get ready for Saturday, what are a couple players or a couple things that you're going to be looking forward to and watching extra close in this game?
Yeah, I actually, in the complete psycho behavior that I have, I went back and watched some Colts Ravens week 1 preseason
Love
football.
this.
Yeah, I don't know why I did that, but the one thing I did take away from that game is their defensive line was pretty dominant. Obviously, the Ravens didn't. They only dropped back to throw about 15 or 20 times in that game, but felt like every time they did, the Colts were getting some meaningful pressure on. So I'm really interested to see, especially guys like Anthony Belton, like how he's going to hold up. We knew he was so good at pass pro at NC State, so like if he can really show in a slightly higher level. It's obviously not the big leagues just yet of the NFL. You're playing a lot of practice squad and other guys. But yeah, I'm really interested to see how they hold up. I'd like to see El Gersma get some looks in the second half, especially. I think they're going to let him, grip it and rip it, as they say. So I'd like to see how that O-line holds up. I just think overall I'm expecting to see more juice from a team that really probably got their ass handed to them in post-game talks and locker room talks all week from LaFleur and the other coaches. So, I mean, it's going to be hard to play as poorly as they did last week. My question for you, Andy, would be what happens if you took the Broncos preseason game from last year? I think that was week 2 preseason. What was it, 27-2? What if you just copied and pasted it straight into this week? Packers blown out again, obliterated in all 3 phases. When do we start having conversations about preseason football and preseason losses?
Yeah, it's funny. Tommy basically asked almost that in just a slightly different way this last segment. And I just think at the end of the day, like if they lose like 1 billion to nothing over the next 2 preseason weeks and still beat Detroit week 1, nobody's going to give one crap whatsoever, right? But if you have that sort of performance in preseason and even just lose by 1 to Detroit, it's going to be like, well, like you weren't prepared in the preseason and now you lost to Detroit week 1. And then you've got a tough game against Washington coming up on Thursday Night Football. So there's going to be that opportunity if you don't perform in preseason where fans, I think, are going to want to carry that over and be like, well, you didn't look good in preseason and then you lost to Detroit. Like what's going on? Why did this happen? If they lose by 1 billion over the next 2 weeks and beat Detroit even by a point, everyone's going to be like, well, preseason doesn't matter. They beat the Lions. Let's go on to Washington. We're going undefeated. Like I think it's all going to swing on what happens against Detroit one way or the other, regardless of what happens in preseason. But it would be nice if we saw a little bit better, like just effort and consistency. I quite frankly, like I don't care about the score period in a preseason game, but I will take it a step further and say, while I don't care about the score, I would still like to see a better energy and intensity in this game. Like if they come out and they play with the high effort, energy, and intensity, but they lose 27-2 because Malik Willis and no wide receivers are out there. Malik Willis is at quarterback. No wide receivers of note other than Matthew Golden are out there for maybe a handful of plays. And, whatever, like the starters don't play. And that's why, okay, if you're just out talented, it's not that huge of a deal. And if your players aren't actually playing, that's fine. But I need to see a little bit more energy, intensity, and what Brian Gutekunst said at the beginning of the offseason, urgency from this team. And if I see that and they lose, it's not a huge deal, but it's more of like just the eye test. And the eye test did not pass in the first game. I want the eye test to pass a little bit more in this game.
100%. Yeah, again, I completely agree. The score line at the end isn't really going to swing me one way or the other. It's just when I get back and looking through the game footage, is our guys, showing effort? Is the baseline average of play picked up from last week? I mean, statistically, it's going to be pretty difficult to play any worse than they did last week, even with a likely weaker side out for Green Bay. And as you said earlier, the Colts are probably going to throw not a full hand, but a pretty full deck at this. They're going to have their 2 starting QBs, if you can call them that, out there. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
It's also the thing is that like two starting ish QBs, I guess, but they've both started games in the league for whatever that's worth, I guess. Again, we're being joined by Dara Carragher. Find him on social media at that handle at Dara Carragher, and then of course at PackerReport.com. Of course, we are also live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. I do want to ask you about that Irish kicking connection. You've got Daniel Whelan at punter, who has been just knocking the snot out of the ball. There's been a couple punts where I think are just defying gravity at this point. It's crazy to see. And then you've also got a new international pathway player kicker in McNamee, who's out there. I think he was 3 of 3 on field goals, 3 of 3 or 4 of 4 on field goals yesterday. So it's an interesting Irish kicking connection right now in Green Bay.
Yeah, Mark, like all kickers coming over from Ireland, the raw talent is still there. It's all there. It's there in spades. Listen, everyone in Ireland grows up kicking a ball of some description, whether it's a soccer ball or rugby ball. In the case of Mark and myself, it's Gaelic football. Mark's just got a slightly bigger leg than me. That's why he's in Green Bay right now. But listen, everyone knows he's not going to make the 53-man roster. Like Bisaccia literally came out himself and said, it's great to have an extra leg at camp to take some of the load off of Brandon. So as if it already wasn't signed, sealed, delivered, McManus is the guy making the roster, and rightly so. Part of me does wonder if Mark was here last year, like he probably gets his chance to start, and if he holds on to it, all of a sudden you go from Gaelic footballer to starting kicker in the NFL. That's like the most crazy. The kicker position is just such a crazy time and place position in the NFL. But yeah, like just getting out there, getting looked at by teams, these guys are still living out their most wildest, unthinkable dreams. And the international designation on practice squads gives them a great chance to hang around. And if anything were to happen in Green Bay or elsewhere, you know, some other team could like them. These guys are going to get their chances. So yeah, between McNamee, Smith, Charlie Smith in New Orleans, and Jude McAtamney in there's Ross Bolger too. McAtamney's in New York. It's hard to keep up with all these guys, but yeah, there's some great things happening on the kicking front over here in Ireland.
It's an invasion. They're all just coming over and taking over the kicking position. The interesting thing with McNamee is it wouldn't stun me if he stayed on the practice squad as that international pathway player. I do think they like having the second kicker on the roster and using that kind of extra bonus spot. And I actually think it's really smart to do it that way for a couple different reasons. I mean, number one, the odds that you can find an international pathway player like Kenneth Odumegwu, for example, who they had as their last one, as like a defensive end or something like that, that's going to come in and learn the nuances of that position and actually become an impactful player for you. Like the odds of that happening are just so incredibly slim. Meanwhile, you now have the ability to roster a second kicker. And we have seen times, Dare, where like the day before a game, a kicker will come up with some sort of leg injury or an illness, and like you're scrambling to try to find a kicker at the last second. If you can get one to Green Bay or whatever, just having that guy on the roster already that you can just call up using one of your practice squad call-ups for the week if you actually need to. It actually is good depth and insurance. And you do actually have a position where I do think there is developmental potential there where maybe you do find a cheap kicker out of nowhere. So it would not stun me if he was that international pathway program this season, just like Alex Hale was last season. So I do think that there's a real possibility there.
Yeah, all you have to do is kick. Like he showed up in Green Bay literally the night before the preseason game. If he's playing any other position, he's not putting on the pads that day. You know, he can just go out and kick the way he's been kicking for the past couple of years. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they hold on to him. Obviously, McManus isn't the youngest kicker in the league. So if there is a chance that he can hold on, you get that designation for 3 years anyway. So if he really blows them away, who knows? He could have a chance. I know he's already 24, 25-ish, but you know he's got more room to grow because he's only been playing the sport for a year or two.
Yeah, very much so. Before we get you out of here, the Packers, as we mentioned, the big test is going to be week 1 against Detroit, and we really want to see Green Bay get off to a strong start. And after last year where they did terrible in the division and couldn't win any big games, they now have a division game versus a big time team at home right away, and we all want to see them pick up that win. What do you need to see from Green Bay over the course of these final few weeks of training camp and preseason to give you confidence that they're ready to go week 1 and can pull off that win against Detroit?
I don't think it's anything that ostensibly we can see on the outside, but offensively, I would like everyone just to keep as clued in as possible, even though Jordan Love isn't practicing. Look, when you don't have the QB back there with the cadence and throwing you the ball, it can be easy maybe for guys to not focus as much. You mentioned Love actually won't miss many practices. You mentioned it the other day. I found that interesting. But regardless, like you need guys to show the same level of focus and intensity and effort all through the final couple of weeks just to round out into form. I know Jordan's going to be there at practice anyway, so it's not exactly some kind of big gap in terms of who's throwing the ball and whatnot. But then defensively, you kind of get on a similar thing on the outside, but with Xavier McKinney, obviously the safety is less important to the whole defense as QB is to the offense. But just on a personal level for both of these guys, look, they've both assured everyone they'll be ready to go by week one. In Jordan's case, I'm pretty confident that will be the case. Listen, Xavier McKinney, like it's a 3 or 4 week calf injury. That does carry some uncertainty. Like the longer the injury, the higher the variance of return. And although he's saying, yeah, he'll be ready to go by week one, I'll believe it when I see it, when a guy who is just going to bin off the entire preseason and hopefully be all guns blazing week one. Like, yeah, I mean, that's probably what's best for him and the long-term chances of him staying healthy. But yeah, it's not something that you love to hear at any point in the season.
No, I cringe at calf injuries now because of after what happened to Tyrese Halliburton and
Man, I'm sitting
Damian Lillard.
I'm sitting with a boot on I tore my Achilles a month ago. I've got a
no
boot
way.
on my right now. Yeah. So I've been tracking Halliburton's recovery so far.
So what's the what was the injury like? Was it playing soccer, or football, or what were we doing?
Football, the same sport Mark McNamee came over from. Maybe I should try a hand at a safer position like kicker. Yeah, I was just pushing off the foot, running the most classic Achilles tear you'll ever see. But yeah, I'm 5 weeks post-op now, so I'm going well. I still have about 10 months to go, but at least I'm back walking ish.
I expect a Christian Watson-esque recovery. So I expect you to be ahead of schedule when we're doing this next year to start the season. I need to see that 4.340 time just blazing, Dara. So that's my expectation for you moving forward. I cannot thank you enough for coming on. Tell us where we can find all of your incredible work.
Yeah, you can find me on X, Twitter at Derek Carragher, and also you can find me at packerreport.com. I'll have some articles coming to PFF too in the coming future. So keep an eye out for that.
Make sure to follow him on social media and check him out over at PackerReport.com. He does an incredible job covering the team, and hopefully the injury heals up nicely, and we'll definitely be doing this again soon. I appreciate you a ton.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me. Have a good day.
You bet. Appreciate you joining us on the Fan Guest Hotline powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. Again, follow him on social media at Dara Carragher. This is the Pack a Day Radio Show. We'll be back with more Packers talk right after this.
I do feel like Matthew Golden is going to be a pivot point for the Packers this season. One thing that they really needed at the end was a reliable deep threat. And I say reliable because it's not just about speed and getting open, which Christian Watson's really the only guy on this team who you kind of trust in that regard, but also not dropping the football. This Packers receiving group had the highest drop rate in the NFL. Jordan Love is a guy who loves to throw the ball deep. We know that. To me, if Golden can become the explosive deep threat that they, I think, hoped he would be when he drafted, I'm feeling pretty good about this offense, JP.
Welcome back to the Pack a Day Radio Show. That was Mina Kimes on Matthew Golden, courtesy of the Mina Kimes Show. A huge thank you to Dara Carragher for joining us this past segment. Again, follow him on social media at Dara Carragher. Also, a reminder, the Mason Crosby Show with Mitch Nellis is coming up from 9 to 11. And you can find the Pack a Day Radio Show as a podcast. Find us anytime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Catch the full episode, listen by individual hour, or jump straight to the highlights. Just open up your favorite podcast app, search Pack a Day Radio Show, hit the follow button so you get every minute of the show your way and on your time. And while you're out there, check out the Pack a Day podcast as well. Tommy, I'm so thankful that we have a leadoff show again today. Everything is right in the world. We get free burgers next week. I've never eaten at a George Webb's, by the way. That's on me. I might have to do that while I'm in Milwaukee today.
Yeah. George Webb the next Wednesday, right? August 20th, I believe, sometime between 2 and 6. Andy, believe if you go today, you can get the voucher if you will not be able to attend between that time frame they have. So it's like up until, I think it's starting today, they made a post, so you can go in and get a voucher if you cannot attend during that window. So maybe you should actually make it a priority to get to a George Webb during that stretch. Brewers 4:30 leadoff show today, 5:40 first pitch from Cincinnati. Andy, Apple TV Plus games should be banned. They should be illegal. They should not exist. I am very frustrated.
Do you need my login, Tommy? Do you need my login?
I will. Yes, I will ask you for your login. I will, because I signed up for the free trial, and then it went super viral because Pat Murphy ate pancakes last time on Apple TV Plus. That came out of his pocket, but I it's just Red Foreman all over again, where you got to tell him like all the different apps and streaming services you got to watch the Packers on, and he just is like, what, why is it not on Channel 4? Right, that's where I'm at. Sorry, that's my old man screams at cloud for the day.
I totally get it, and yes, if you want to, watch all of your favorite teams all season long, you need about 20 different apps and, services and subscriptions and everything like that. That's where we are. But yeah, hopefully everyone has a friend or somebody that they can, get a free login from or whatever. But I get the frustration with it. It is just sort of the state of things. Did you see my tweet that went viral the other day? Or like a week ago? You did, right? Because you called it out. The cable one?
The cable one. Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome.
It was like, it ended up with like 700,000 likes and like, I don't even, like 15 million views or something.
Yeah.
And it was literally just like, so Disney and Hulu Plus are combining into one app like permanently.
Yeah, Hulu's going away. Yeah.
Yeah, I just said something of like, I hope eventually they take all the apps and combine them into one app called Cable. And that was like literally it. And it's just, I would just like all of my things to be in one thing with one subscription. And I don't want cable back, like dealing with like cable company and being like, hey, you raised my prices again. Can I call you and like threaten to cancel so that you will lower it back to where it was? Like, I don't want that necessarily, but man, like having like 50 of these things, there's subscriptions I probably have that I don't even know of at this point. Like that's where we're at in the entire thing.
I'm actually pretty excited because this is the last month of my debit card and it will expire after August.
So you're about to find out.
So I got the new card that came in like about a few weeks ago, but it expires August of this. So I assume it goes through August of this. But come September, like everything's going to be back to normal and reset. And I can't wait because I know I have services I'm just not using that are totally useless somewhere along the way.
Just make sure you resubscribe to that Pack a Day Podcast YouTube membership as soon as you get that new card number. So just make sure that doesn't expire, please.
I got it.
All right, before we get out of here, let's get to our Potawatomi Sportsbook final thought of the day.
You got to do some smart thinking.
It's time for Andy Herman's final thought of the day.
What are you thinking?
Powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
What the hell were you thinking?
You're listening to the Pack a Day Radio Show on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan.
All right, Tommy, Packers, Colts, preseason week 2. We've kind of talked about it. In the scheme of things, doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot, but who or what are you watching for in this game?
Oh, gosh, Andy. I don't know. Defensive line, special teams, like stuff to get cleaned up on those ends, those fronts. I would like to see the defensive line have something positive this year that isn't just 2 weeks of the season that inflates all your stats for an entire regular season. So defensive line and special teams needs to get cleaned up because I just want to not worry about that. Because last year, when you could not worry about that, that was way more fun than when every time the years prior you had to hold your breath on every punt, kick, kickoff, kick return, punt return, you name it.
Yes, defensive plays too. Like it was nice to see a defense that actually could hold its own and not have to be, again, just like clenching your teeth throughout the entirety of the drive, being like, well, where is this going to go wrong? So I know I'm with you there. I've got 3 players that I want to see carry over really some of the success that they had from week 1 preseason. You mentioned defensive line. I'm going to be watching the offensive line. I do think the Colts defensive front has the ability to get after a little bit. Jordan Morgan, Anthony Belton, you have 5 potential starters. We'll see if Morgan can really start over Rasheed Walker, but let's just take Morgan out of the equation. You have 5 legitimate starters. You're going to need more guys throughout the course of the year than just those 5. And the next 2 guys up are Jordan Morgan and Anthony Belton. And then you don't have a whole heck of a lot after that. So those 2 are going to be in very important positions this year of depth for Green Bay along the offensive line. You're going to need them. And I want to see if they can continue to show up and see if they are viable options as the course of the season goes along. So Jordan Morgan, Anthony Belton. On the defensive side, player had a really nice game last week that didn't get a ton of attention is Tyron Hopper. And I think, especially with the way Simmons struggled last week, we kind of know what Isaiah McDuffie is. If Hopper could go out and have a really good week this week, I think he would at least have to get his name in the conversation a little bit for that third linebacker spot behind Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper. So those are the 3 that I'm going to be watching for. Of course, we'll be keeping a very close eye on everything and breaking it all down for you next week on the Pack-A-Day radio show. But my 3, Jordan Morgan, Anthony Belton, and Tyron Hopper. That's my final thought. Tommy, anything else from you before we get out of here today?
Go Brewers. Go Brewers all weekend long. Why not? Why not? And also, let's just relax if Malik Willis balls out this weekend. Okay, people, just relax. I'm very less concerned about that. This Brewers thing, though, I mean, I just never want this thing to end. Like, it is so I don't ever want them to lose again. Like, if they lose like a game, I'm going to be like, I don't know what to do with my life anymore. That's the level that they're playing at. Although I did see that they had to make a couple transactions with Perkins yesterday, and then Collins as well, correct? I believe that what we got working out is that we have Stuart Baroa coming up because Isaac Collins is going on paternity leave for the weekend. And then I didn't see the other corresponding move. I assumed it was going to be Siegler going down for Tyler Black coming up. But we'll wait to hear on
Perkins
the finals.
Apparently is going on bereavement leave is what I believe is happening. And then they have Tyler Black coming up, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it is Tyler Black and Stuart Baroa coming up for
Milwaukee. So I think it's going to be Perkins and Collins that are, thankfully no injury, but you never want to hear bereavement, of course. And then you do want to hear paternity. That's fantastic for Isaac Collins. So, we'll see what that kind of amounts to. But I just expect Stuart Baroa, I just expect him to go 7 for 11 with 4 homers and 91 RBIs this weekend.
Yeah, I did say that was my pick for who was going to come up. He is literally every Brewers outfielder that you can think of. He's fast. He's going to play defense. He's going to be aggressive the whole time. He might as well be Brandon Lockridge 2.0.
All right. You got double Lockridges going on in the outfield this weekend. Sign me the heck up for that. If I didn't need enough to, watch already, I've got more things to keep an eye on. Hopefully Tyler Black can come in and make an impact too. That'd be a nice little bonus as well. We'll definitely be watching that again. Check out the leadoff show today. A huge thank you to Tommy for everything that you do all week, my friend. Appreciate you a ton. Stay tuned to the Mason Crosby Show with Mitch Nellis coming up 9 to 11 right here on The Fan. We'll be back next week breaking down Packers preseason game, getting ready for week 3, including the Seattle Seahawks coming to Green Bay for joint practices next week. This has been the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. Enjoy your weekend, and of course, go Pack Go.